Hello and very welcome back to the next step in the Carnegie Healthcare webinar. My name is Claes Parin and I'm an equity analyst following the next company to present, which is Orexo. And the presenter of Orexo is CEO Nikolaj Sørensen. Very welcome.
Thank you very much, Claes.
Go ahead with your presentation, please.
So I'm going to present Orexo to you. Orexo is a quite exciting commercial stage pharmaceutical company, but we are now moving into a phase with the next generation of pipeline projects, so next generation of pharmaceuticals, and I'll come back to that shortly. So very shortly with Orexo, we are a company that's been in business for more than 25 years. We are quite unique in the Swedish landscape because we have developed several products that have made it all the way to the market all over the world. So we're generating royalty income from a couple of products. We have an own product, Zubsolv, that we're selling in the US, and now we're coming into the phase where we have the next generation of Orexo products. The big focus for Orexo for the last 10 years have been on opioid use disorder, this disease that is killing about 100,000 people in the US. We are one of the few companies who are both working actively with promoting and the pharmaceutical products, but we're also developing new pharmaceuticals addressing this dreadful disease. We're doing that with our own commercial platform in the US. We've been in the US since 2013 with our own commercial organization. We have sales reps in most metropolitan areas in the US. So this is also a unique part for Orexo compared to many other Swedish companies who are now moving into that phase of commercialization. We've been in the US since 2013. What is really exciting with the company right now is the pipeline we have based on a new world-leading nasal powder technology that we have branded AmorphOX. This is something that is improving the stability. That means the shelf life of the product significantly from previous formulations. It's also something that makes it temperature insensitive to temperature changes. So products that are before would have to be in the refrigerator or even frozen down can now be stored in room temperatures. And then we have tested this in several different clinical trials comparing to the market leading products, and we've seen that we have a product that is much higher bioavailable. That means that it's, in particular for rescue medication, something you want to work fast. We have probably the fastest formulation out there. All of this have the last year generated sales of more than 600 million Swedish. We have a positive EBITDA for the last 12 months. We have about 200 million in liquid funds when we ended Q1 this year. So we're in a quite stable position, and particularly when you look at the profitability, we have seen a continuous improvement quarter over quarter for the last year. Our product portfolio is really the big anchor in the portfolio Zubsolv. That is where we are generating about 90% of our sales, but we still get some royalties from Abstral, which is a pain product, for Edluar, which is an insomnia product. And we're also working with a complementary digital health platform, in particular within products where we see an overlap with our pharmaceuticals. For example, opioid use disorder, we see a lot of benefit for people to get a continuous reminders, follow-up, and also access to technologies like cognitive behavioral therapy, which is helping you to change your lifestyle. That is coming in with our digital health products. But what is really exciting with the company now is this growing pipeline of products where OX124 is the next one. We have it in with FDA right now. We expect to launch it late this year or early next year, so everything goes like planned. Right after, we could launch OX125. That's a little overlapping, same disease space. It's based on a similar molecule. This one, nalmefene. The one we have is in FDA reviews based on naloxone, so they are reversing overdose with opioids, both of them. We are holding back on OX125 to see a little if there's a risk of cannibalization or not. The most exciting product, I think, in our pipeline is OX640. That is for anaphylactic shock. That means that when you get an allergic shock, we have a product that you can now, today you're using an injectable. We think we can make this as a nasal spray, and we're already proven that in the first clinical trial. Then we have several other early stage projects that we are planning to advance when we have the funds available, and probably also partners. So opioid use disorder is the big focus for the company. It's something in the US which is affecting nearly 10 million people. We see that about 6 million people are dependent on opioids. We have seen the number of people dying from overdose in the US have been quite stable, around 100,000, of which more than 80,000 are dying from overdose with opioids. So this is something that is it's kind of outside imagination how big an impact this is making on society in the US. The people who are dying from opioid overdose are often young people, college kids who are maybe taking a drug for fun, for partying. It's also people who got an accident, and could be in the US quite small accidents. They're prescribed an opioid and then they get hooked. So this is something that can affect everyone, and we have so many stories about patients who basically come from very good backgrounds. They got a painkiller prescribed and suddenly they start misusing. This is the big focus for our product Zubsolv, but also we developed this digital mental health program MODIA to complement our Zubsolv treatment, and now next step will be an opioid rescue medication, which is targeting the product that is killing most people right now. It's fentanyl. Fentanyl is 50 times as powerful as heroin. It's also an opioid, but much more powerful. And today's rescue medications are simply not strong enough to reverse a fentanyl overdose. Zubsolv is the #1 cash generator. We have, since the launch in 2013, sold for more than 5 billion Swedish kronor of Zubsolv. The sales the last year is a little less than 600 million. We have seen a quite stabilization of the Zubsolv sales the last year. We saw a dip from 2019 and into last year, but now we start to see a relatively stable sales. Although this first quarter this year had some inventory changes in the US, which put a little pressure on sales, but we believe that will be fixed in the next quarter. What we have seen is we have increased the price in the US. We're seeing the Medicaid segment, which is the biggest in the US. We're actually taking market share based on improved market access, so agreements with insurance companies. And we're also seeing in what we call the open commercial segment, that's where we have a stable competitive platform. We have also seen a relatively stable development the last year. What is really costing us is that we had 2 exclusive contracts that expired in 2019, and where we had more than 90% market share. That market share has faded out during the last few years and caused a negative development for Zubsolv. But we believe we are getting into the tail of that development. If you look long term, what is going to drive sales in the US is really about improving access to treatment. We see that the issue with opioid use disorder is not fully addressed, and many patients have difficulties finding a physician that want to treat them. And here there are a lot of initiatives on a political level. The biggest one came last year. It's called the Mainstream Addiction Treatment Act, which allowed all physicians to treat opioid addiction. Before, you had to have a certain specialty, certain education, but now we believe that most physicians will soon be able to prescribe Zubsolv and other products for treatment of opioid dependence. Another big driver is, of course, money. And here the US have been through a lot of what they call opioid litigation. So the companies who were behind the wide distribution of painkillers in the US and who never stopped that, even though they had opportunities to see that we saw overprescription of opioid painkillers, a lot of them continued basically making money on that. These are early stages of the opioid epidemic in the US, and that has resulted in massive opioid litigations and settlements. And today the settlement funds are now $54 billion, of which 80% are earmarked to go back into improved treatment of opioid addiction. So it's an enormous amount of money that should go back into treatment over the next couple of years. And Orexo is today, I think, one of the few active companies who are working with a broad portfolio of solutions, and we're working to get to with a lot of healthcare providers to try to find ways where we can combine our different products to access these $54 billion. AmorphOX is our next generation of products. So this is where we have tested this new nasal powder, or actually you can say for some of these it might even just stay with a powder that you can then make to an injectable or deliver in other ways. But what we've seen is a very, very stable formulation. So products that are otherwise very sensitive to temperatures, take the spike protein that all of us knew from the COVID pandemic. The spike protein, we have seen in room temperature retained activities after 3 months. This is something that if you had just done it without AmorphOX, it would probably stop with activities within a few days in 40 degrees heat. We have tested it in a broad spectrum of peptides, large molecules like vaccines, but also many smaller molecules, and continuously we see improved stability. And for the ones that are black, that we have a little square around here, nalmefene, naloxone, epinephrine, we have done clinical trials also showing that we have a much better bioavailability compared to the leading products in the market today. OX124 is the next one to come into market. We're expecting to launch it in early 2025. If everything goes fine, it could even be late 2024. It's sitting with FDA right now. We have a PDUFA date in July. We believe that would be somewhat delayed based on the recent interactions with FDA. We released that in our last quarterly report. But the advantages of OX124 is that we have a solution that is more rapid than the existing ones. It is less sensitive to temperature variations. And we also have something that is both higher dose and have a higher bioavailability. So for the patients who are overdosing with synthetic opioids like fentanyl, we believe that OX124 is the product that you can be most confident it will work when you need it. That means when you have an overdose. OX640 is the epinephrine product, where we have again seen the same very high bioavailability compared to other formulations that are in development also for nasal delivery. We are much better than the other ones that are out there. But what's really making this unique is that the product is actually completely temperature insensitive. And why is that important? Because people who have allergies and need what today is an EpiPen or similar injectables, they need to store that in room temperatures. So if you're out skiing in the winter, you can't use it because it's freezing. If you're on the beach in the summers, you can't use it because it's too hot. But with our formulation, you can actually use that whether it's -20 or it's +50 degrees, or you forget your product in the car, for example. And that I think is important, because when do you get allergic reactions? It's rarely home in your living room. It's often when you're somewhere else. So for us, this is really a unique product development. So looking at our financials, our revenues, last year was 640 million. As you can see, our US pharma was about 580 of this, and that is all Zubsolv. Gross profit 550. If you compare the quarters over quarter, we saw that the start of this quarter was lower than last year. So our Q compared to last year was lower. But that is explained fully by changes in inventory at the wholesaler levels that happened in February into March this year, which we've seen not only at Orexo but also other pharma companies. What has been a big focus for the company is to work with our operating expenses. And we have seen a dramatic decrease in operating expenses. So despite the decline in top line during the first quarter, we've seen our EBIT results and EBITDA results improving significantly. And actually our EBITDA results is moving to positive 16 million, and EBIT is closing in to be break even. Liquid funds, about 200 million. What's maybe worth saying is that we had a bond that expires next year, but we refinanced that bond. So now we have a new bond that expires in 4 years. We did that in March together with Carnegie. So finally, the strategy for Orexo moving forward. It's a big focus on our commercial revenues, our Zubsolv value generator. How can we improve and get even more value out of Zubsolv? That's about working on the top line, stabilize it at the same time while we're working on the cost, so we get more profit contributions from Zubsolv. It's about launching OX124, the rescue medication product. We have hired the first team leader for the OX124 team. She has a long experience from this business in the US, and she's now starting to form her team and hire other seasoned executives that can join her into launching OX124. It's about ensuring that our products are accessible to patients so that we have a reimbursement for both Zubsolv but also for OX124 moving forward, and finding new creative ways of how we can access these $54 billion in funds that we have from the opioid abatement funds. And then finally, it's about capitalizing on our technology, launching the products we have in pipeline, but also finding partners for the new products that comes out of the Morphox technologies. And the next one is OX640. And with that, I will thank you for your attention and this short introduction to Orexo. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikolai, for the presentation. And I would like to start with your cash cow, as you describe Zubsolv. I mean, it's been on the market for more than a decade, and you have defended your patent in two, at least, patent litigation processes. And just a little bit of curiosity, I mean, you've been on the market like 11 years, and another 8 years perhaps, that will be 19 years. How difficult is it to continue to have this market position going forward, and why are you optimistic that you perhaps even could strengthen your market position?
So I think the Zubsolv, of course, is quite well known today. So most of the physicians and patients know about Zubsolv, so we're an established brand. It's hard to see that Zubsolv suddenly is going to break a curve, either upwards or downwards, that requires significant changes, I think, in reimbursement, because just through marketing and sales, I don't think we'll see that. But if we look at the segment where we haven't seen changes in market access, we are seeing quite stable Zubsolv sales, even during the last 4 years. And in the Medicaid segment, where we actually have improved reimbursement slightly, we have taken market share during the last year. And I think in Medicaid, there are still areas to cover. So I think there are good opportunities for Zubsolv to get improved reimbursement. But what is hard is that you come out with something that is not really new to anyone. So how do you get attention? And that's where I think OX124 coming in later this year is creating a renewed interest both in Orexo, but also it could give us an opportunity to meet physicians who say, I don't need to meet you and talk about Zubsolv. I've heard enough about it. But now we have an opportunity more to get through the door. So I think OX124 is very synergistic with our with Zubsolv when we're going out launching it, and that I think is meaningful, that we suddenly have a broader portfolio from one brand to 2 brands, and then we have our complementary digital therapy. Okay,
so when you're going into a launch with the OX124, you have mentioned previously that you are probably expanding your sales force and so on. So, but you see the new persons coming into the company could also promote Zubsolv in a meaningful way?
I see the existing Zubsolv reps could promote OX124 in a meaningful way. I think the new people coming into Orexo will be more what you call account executives, where we think there is a segment is what you call first responders, so firefighters, ambulances, police force, community houses, it could be libraries, it could be companies who actually now, we start to see that in the US, like you have a heart starter, you have a rescue medication kit. And there we have an advantage, because if you don't really know what the patient have taken, then we have a dose where you know it's strong enough from the beginning. And we also have something that is insensitive to temperatures, which I think in a lot of areas in the US, particularly up in the north, in the winter time, if you have it in the police car and you have one of the existing products, which are all liquids, they will freeze. Our products won't freeze. So you have something that can work independent of whether it's winter, summer, or if you forget it or have it in the car. Okay,
have you been out there talking to institutionals, buyers of Narcan, for example, could be interested in a product with such differentiation?
We know there's an interest in the high-dose alternatives, and we have seen customers who are interested. What is always difficult is that if you don't have an approved product, you're not allowed to talk about the specific product. So, and one thing we have been quite sensitive about, a little based on experience, is not to disclose too much about the dosage strengths and others of the product, because we see that could enable generic companies to make a generic copy of the product. So we're kind of holding that as long as possible. But we do see that the interest in these high-dose alternatives is increasing. The promise around improved stability is something that is generating interest. And now when we have Lisa Moore as our commercial lead, I think one of her first tasks is going out and use the network she has from her previous employer to actually establish OX124.
And also just a question to your DTX portfolio. You didn't mention that much in your presentation, but Modia is also synergistic, you could say, to Zubsolv and OX124. Do you see any commercial opportunities there in the near term? I mean, 1 to 2, 3 years ahead?
No, so Modia is when you prescribe Zubsolv, that's a maintenance treatment. OX124 is a rescue medication, but for the maintenance treatment, we see that Zubsolv works best if it's combined with what you call psychosocial support. With Zubsolv, you can reduce the symptoms you get from being addicted to heroin, so you You can't get high, because if you should take heroin while you're on Zubsolv, you won't really get an effect, and your withdrawal symptoms would be much less. So it's enable you to basically taper out or down to zero if you want over long term, or at least go down to a low level of opioids. But for that to work, you need to change your behavior. You need to change the way you're living. You need to have other tools than medication. And that's where we see a lot of the patients, they only get the medication. And we know if you only get medication, the chances for success is very, very slim. So by combining with MODIA, we believe we can improve chances of success. That resonates with a lot of physicians. And I think that I know that we are in discussion in a lot of states accessing these abatement funds to do different projects and initiatives where we combine MODIA with a medication. And that way we can get access, or can get clear synergies for both Zubsolv and MODIA. So the first funds were paid out last year to the states and the municipalities in the US, and the second tranche is coming now in the beginning of this year. So now they start to building money. For some states started already last year, some of them have started now, some have not really started yet. The difficulty I see is that this is highly political. It's kind of, is it the governor's money? Is it the attorney general's money? And that is something we're seeing in a lot of states. There's an internal fight. Who are going to give out this money? Who are going to take the political credit for that? And I must say, I'm very disappointed how slow it is moving. So people are dying while they're fighting about who are going to take the prestige of dividing out the money. But the first tranches were paid out in the late last year, and we see the second ones are coming out now during the summer. So I believe there's a short-term opportunity for us to access through MODIA and our portfolio. And I can't see anything else, and this needs to grow because the amount of money coming out will accelerate during the next few years.
Interesting. And then let's jump to another growth driver, perhaps at least, OX640. And you don't, I understand you don't want to commercialize this product by yourself, but could you describe a little bit what kind of partner you are looking for?
So I think there's an opportunity in particular among some of the rescue personnel to leverage our infrastructure we're building for OX124. So with opioid use disorder, the overlap is not that big, but the other part of OX124 as a rescue medication, the first responders, OX640 is relevant as well. But our aim is to find a partner to help also financing the next step of the development. And here there's a handful of companies who are working with allergies or allergy medications already now. We know most of the patients who start on this medication, they come from an allergy specialist. So we're looking, of course, at companies who are meeting the allergy specialist already and see if we can complement with our product for anaphylactic shock. We're looking at some of the companies who have injectables already because they have an infrastructure, but we saw that with naloxone and treatment of opioid overdose, how it basically, when the nasal delivery forms came out, more than 90% of the market switched from injectable to a nasal formulation. I think there's a good chance the same will happen here. So some of those who have today an injectable should be interested in finding a way to get a new solution, and here OX640 could fit well. So, and to answer the questions, companies who are active within allergy and who have that access to a specialist group where we are not present today, I think would be the optimum partner.
And you want such a company to have a global presence, or primarily US you're looking for?
So I can see a solution where we find a European partner and then we keep the rights for the US, because it is a quite narrow specialized target segment, so we could build up our own infrastructure. But of course, if we find a global partner, that will take away a lot of logistical challenges. It will make it easier for us to work with, and of course, probably also a richer agreement, because the US market is, I think, 75–80% of the value.
Very interesting, and looking forward to follow this process. And maybe we could jump to the last, at least from my perspective, growth driver. It's your platform, and it's the originator of the Orexo 124 and 640. But you have a sort of a collaboration with Sobi, and also you have some early collaboration with a vaccine developer. I guess. Is this the partners you are active with today, or is it more partners that you are out there and testing your technology with?
We worked with one other partner who has had a biologics in the US. That other partner, we had some good results for the formulation. We think we could move from an injectable to a nasal spray. That's an NCE product. And they were forced in, they had FDA review just a few months ago, or actually not a few weeks ago, and FDA were asked for more toxicology data. So they were forced to take a step back with an NCE project. And that's the risk with NCE projects, is that a lot of them have a long development platform. So we did have that, and they are still there, but they need to solve the toxicology before we can start looking at different delivery mechanisms. We worked with another vaccine company also, where we had good results, but the vaccine that they were looking at was a COVID vaccine, and right now I think the COVID vaccines we have out there are working quite well, so we don't need a new formulation. So they stepped out, but I think we still have opportunities to come back with them later for some of the other vaccines. And now we're working with another vaccine company, as you talked to, and there what we really want to see is to generate more data about bioavailability, about stability, and that we can do together with that company, create a kind of a stream of scientific evidence that it works.
And how important is it for you to have these kind of collaborations?
I think AmorphOX, the big unique part and is where we can create value is for larger molecules, that means biologics. Because for small molecules there are a lot of technologies out there, and the differentiation we can offer is more limited. But when you come to larger molecules, a lot of them have issues with stability, they have issues with bioavailability, they have issues with delivery, so they are might injectables where you could potentially make it to a nasal spray. And there, I believe our technology is unique, because none of the other ones we have seen have actually have the same kind of bioavailability combined with the stability. So to generate data that shows that actually work for real is very important long term. And we have patents for AmorphOX up in the 40s, and with new products we couldn't probably even extend that. So we have a pretty broad patent platform, and we have a long longevity on the patents, which I think for some of these biologics are also important, that this could add another patent protection by working with a new technology.
And then my final question is, if an investor would buy the shares of Orexo today and have these shares for 3 years, what kind of company would Orexo be then?
I think if you just look at some of the short term, we have today 1 commercial products. In 3 years, I'm absolutely certain we will have 2 commercial products, if not 3. In 3 years, we will also, the patent litigation we have on Zubsolv, we won in the district court. I'm quite confident that we will win in the Federal Court of Appeal, so we won't have that patent uncertainty that we have been followed with the last year. I believe we have a company with several different partnerships on the platform, where Orexo have basically more shot on goals. So our technology is sitting with companies like Sobi's, companies like the vaccine companies, and hopefully a portfolio of other companies where Orexo is more on the back seat, and if those products are successful, we will generate value in the future. So I think we will have a company that, there are a lot of other drug delivery companies in Sweden, but most of them have no commercial platform. We have a commercial platform that generates a continuous revenue stream. At the same time, we have the opportunity to both develop products for our own pipeline, to commercialize, but we also to work with other partners. So we have a broader business to work from. And I think that's a big change from Orexo. For many years, we have just been Zubsolv. I think in the future, in 3 years, I'm absolutely certain that we have more products in the pipeline, and we're more commercial products.
And you're a profitable company?
I think we have the opportunity to be profitable in 3 years. And then, of course, at that time, whoever is sitting in our board of directors and also the management needs to look at the opportunities and is it worth investing. But we have everything in our own hands. Just like we're proven right now, we have the ability to be a profitable company in 3 years. And if that's the right decision in 3 years, we will be a profitable company in 3 years. If the market and our investors prefer profitability, that's where we're going to be.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nikolai.
Thank you.
Thank you.